Hi everyone, my name is Ezra Jacob Smith, and as I said before, I'm traditional owner for the Whadjuk region. I'd like to thank Sue and Gina for inviting me to come and talk today. My absolute pleasure. Okay, so I'll just go through some of my family history. So I'm a direct descendant of Dornong, who was born in 1812 and lived around the area of Guildford. And I'd also just like to quickly say that I pay respect to my ancestors who lived in this area and continue to do so to this day, and I think of them as we gather in this place. Okay, I don't know if people are aware, but there are 500 language groups in Australia, 12 of which are located in this southwest region of WA, and the Whadjuk language group is one of those 12. This is a copy of my family tree. At the bottom, on the right-hand side, you can see Cedric Jacobs, so that's my grandfather, and it goes all the way back to Dornong up here. That says 1812. At the top, the text is a bit small. So that's, including me, 7 generations. Okay, I suppose on to the topic of today. Emotions. Tricky subject. I don't really talk about them a lot, I suppose. So it's interesting to come and speak to a group of complete strangers. I think I struggled with this topic for a bit, and I spent a few days thinking about how I would approach this talk. And the way that I came up with was actually one of the questions that we were asked to talk about before. And it was going to be, I was just going to talk about the transition of my emotions through my life, my short life anyway, starting with my childhood. So as a child, I actually grew up in Mandurah, and we used to use the estuary down there a lot for crabbing, fishing and swimming and stuff like that. We didn't actually, I suppose a lot of these experiences I relate to Mandurah, not so much to the Swan River, but to me it's the same thing. So yeah, a lot of fun and happiness involved with being on the estuary. We were fishing, crabbing, swimming a lot, so a lot of leisure activities. A lot of excitement. The river and those water areas always seem to be a concentration of people and activities, so when you're in those places, you know, it's very exciting. There's a lot of activities going on. And also, as I said briefly before, I remembered it being a place where I could escape from the trappings of my young life, my homework for school, and you know, things that I didn't want to have to do around the house, chores and stuff. If we were out on the water, then I could put those off for a little bit longer. As I said, there was always a lot of people there, and I think that was one of the things that Pop rang up was being at these places. The beach is one of those places as well, I suppose. It's a place of equality. You know, when you're at the water, you strip off all of your image that you carry around with you in society. So, you know, your suit goes and everyone is equal, everyone is human there. And that's one of the things I like. Like, you know, when we were young, we would always be walking along the jetties, and Pop would just stop and talk to anyone and ask them, you know, what they've caught fishing. And I just thought that was really weird because he didn't even know those people, you know. He didn't know if they would like to talk to him or not. So it also taught me, I was also taught to respect the river as a young kid. When we fished and when we crabbed there, we were always taught to take only what we needed, and if we were crabbing and we got female crabs, we never took females, but if there were female crabs with eggs, you know, then we were very sure to make sure that they were okay. I just added this in at the last 10 minutes as I was sitting down, because I think I realised that, I suppose, while I was still a kid, I think my emotions towards the river started to change, and it all sort of centred around this one time when I was down the foreshore with some family, and we were there for a picnic, and my cousin was swimming in the water, Shanae. She was younger than me, and she actually cut her foot on some broken glass that was in the sand, so she jumped into the water and put her feet into the sand, and there was a bit of broken glass there, and it was a pretty severe cut. And I just remember thinking, you know, I don't want to go back into the river now because I don't know if there's broken glass in there. Like, I wouldn't run in there it's not as welcoming to me as it used to be. And that was as a really young child that I had that thought, so it's quite interesting. And then after that, I suppose I went through a period of gaining knowledge about the river. I'm going to change this. So cultural knowledge, I suppose, it gets handed down from generation to generation that my pop has taught to me and my uncles and my aunties. and that's sort of to do with knowing, where our family is from, where our country is, what areas we can speak for. And also through that, so being a traditional owner, around Perth, my family, we get asked to consult a lot on especially riverside developments that go on around the Swan and Canning rivers. These have sort of given me some practical experience when it comes to learning about the development of the river. So I suppose I have a running summary of, small developments that are going on around the river now that I have more knowledge of than I would have before that, before going to those meetings. So yeah, we're very privy to some, I suppose, information that not everyone gets to hear about. So an example of some of those places where we've done consultations are Trinity College. I don't know if you know that as you go over the causeway on your left-hand side, there's a lot of construction work going on there around Trinity College. So we were involved in consultation with that, where they're sort of actually building a man-made inlet there to bring the Swan River water into. It's going to be coming under some buildings that are going to be piled onto the water. So that was one of the things that we looked at. Another one is the riverbank rehabilitation going on. The Perth waterfront redevelopment. Obviously, everyone knows about Elizabeth Quay. And another thing that our family have been heavily involved in is the riverbank rehabilitation and development of the Belmont Racecourse site. So where Belmont Racecourse is, there's a strip of land that sort of is in between that and the river, and that area is being developed by some property developers. My family are involved in looking after the rehabilitation of the riverbanks when that's completed. Also, I've gained knowledge now that I'm studying environmental engineering at uni, so I suppose all the science side of things comes into play now. I learn about how important the river is to the ecosystem of the Swan region. I suppose I should mention that's only a recent thing for me. I've only started studying environmental engineering this year. Actually, I was due to graduate from a mining engineering degree this semester, but I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore, so that was, I suppose, a major change for me, just in the last year. My sort of mind is now completely for conserving the Swan River. That's what I want to do. So we'll move on. Oops. Okay, now, so I suppose we'll talk about my emotions as a 22-year-old man. The first one that comes to mind is probably a bit of anger and some sorrow when I read about and I learn about all the history of the Swan River and the ways it's been mistreated. The second one would probably be concern. I suppose I'm concerned at the fact that, your amount of money determines, I suppose, your level of relationship with the river in Perth now. If you don't have enough money to live on the river, then you don't live there and you probably won't use that area of the river because you don't feel welcome there. And I'm concerned that our river continues to be commercialised by the government for profit. For example, the Perth waterfront redevelopment. I mean, to me, it's really quite clear that, that's quite... I can't see any other reason why they would do that because it's not going to benefit, I think, the general population of Perth. There's only, in that little quay that they're building in front of Perth, there's only 20 or 30 spots for mooring boats. There's more than 20 or 30 people that have boats on the Swan River, so who gets to use those 20 or 30 spots? And also, it's also quite clear to me that by cutting a quay into the foreshore like that, it increases the number of blocks of land that are on the river frontage. So, it's just a moneymaker. Okay, so my plan. So I'm also aware of plans that the government have sort of been talking about in these consultations that we've been having in meetings in the next 10 years to increase the amount of business that's going to be operating on the Swan River. And in addition to the foreshore redevelopment in front of Perth, they're going to be building some more marinas up further north of the river. So the intention would be to have ferries taking people up into the Swan Valley on wine tours and stuff like that, and being able to stop at these marinas along the way and get off and buy things, buy food. And my opinion on that is that any portion of profit made by business operating on the river should go back into conservation efforts. If people cannot make a living from the river in a sustainable way, then alternatives should be sought. I think I skipped a quick, I won't go back to it, but when we meet in these meetings and these consults, we sort of base our decision on whether we approve the development or not on three main things, and that is that the development doesn't affect the water quality, that it doesn't affect the riverbed, and it doesn't affect the water flow. So if any of those three things are affected, we don't approve. And we don't approve of the waterfront redevelopment in front of the city in Perth. We don't approve of the Trinity development there on the river. We don't approve of many of the developments on the river for those facts. Also, I suppose, sort of being involved in this and this symposium and seeing all the people that are interested in conserving the river, it has given me a sense of optimism for the future. And I think as awareness and research into the environmental issues on our rivers grows, we will see a change in the way we seem to take them for granted. And I think one message that we can all sort of take home is, you know, we all expect to have the right to use the river. We all have the same right as each other because we all live in Perth. You know, and it's easy to jump in the car and take the kids down to the river and go swimming for a day and then shoot back off home and carry on with your normal life. But you know, when do you ever spend a day at the river conserving it or doing something other than for your own pleasure? You know what I mean? So I feel like myself, I've been quite selfish in sort of taking for granted the river and the things it has to offer, and I haven't given it much back. So, you know, I do plan to do that in the future.